Good day, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to take a look at the North American Free Trade Agreement, otherwise known as Nafta. Canada's probably most successful, most popular, most recognized, most everything free trade agreement out of all the free trade agreements Canada has. So make sure you get out your notes, you follow the Storm philosophy, sit back and enjoy. Alright, so what are we going to look at today? Well, we are going to identify the background, the events leading up to NAFTA. We're going to take a look at a few country economic profiles of the countries involved, so the United States and Mexico. We're going to identify the impact the free trade agreement NAFTA has had on Canada, and we're going to finish this off with our critical thinking question. So over the next 5 years or so, the United States and Canada realized the potential of the free trade agreement and looked south. And what did they find but a nation with a huge amount of people, an emerging economy, and they found that Mexico would be an excellent partner for their already existing free trade agreement. So in 1994, Mexico entered the free trade agreement, and we changed the name to the North American Free Trade Agreement. So we created a multilateral trade agreement. It created the largest trade bloc in the world, $17 trillion if you combine the three nations' GDP. That's huge. It eliminated tariffs, as mentioned before, but it eliminated now these tariffs on exports to Mexico as well. There was, however, some special rules for agriculture, automotive, and textile products that was implemented into the agreement because they realized that Mexico and their emerging economy and the growing labor force could really cause some serious damage to our already existing industries here in Canada and the United States. But it also protected intellectual property and copyright laws, which was very important, and we see that today ever more so in terms of the products and the processes and the ideas that we develop here in Canada. They are protected. They can't be replicated in the United States. Mexico, through NAFTA, it protects that. Whereas if you look across the ocean to China, you'll see that these the laws, these intellectual property rights, are completely ignored. And again, if we had a free trade agreement with them, maybe that would be different. Alright, so let's take a look at the countries involved with NAFTA. And the big one, yes, the major partner to the south is the United States, the largest and most diversified economy in the world. It has been a global economic powerhouse for, well, I'm going to go with the last 100 years or so. Okay, its GDP per capita has grown considerably. It's one of the wealthiest countries in the world, with a growth rate that is substantial as well. Again, if you look at their industries, yes, they have some in agriculture, they have some in manufacturing, but most of their economy is driven through services. They have a labor force of 154 million people with an unemployment rate of 8%, which is kind of high. Inflation rate is exactly where countries hope it to be, at 2%, and it's the second largest industrial output in the world through producing petroleum, steel, motor vehicles, telecommunications, aerospace, chemicals, so on and so forth. And if we go a bit further south, well, we end up in Mexico. Yes, Mexico! So it's one of those emerging innovative economies that is taking the world by storm. With such a huge population, it has a fairly low GDP per capita of 15,000. However, their growth rate of GDP growth rate, 3.8%, is quite significant. Their composition obviously is some agriculture, a substantial amount in the manufacturing industry, and then services. A labor force of 50 million people also is fairly substantial. Again, think of Canada with only 34 million people. Unemployment rate of 4.5% is extremely low, so they're employing everyone, really. Inflation rate of 4%, however, is fairly high, but it has the 12th largest industrial output in the world. So when we take a look at both countries in terms of their economies, we really begin to consider the fact that NAFTA and its relationship, Canada's relationship with the United States and Mexico, has had a significant impact on our economy as well. Our merchandise trade has grown substantially and has reached $626 billion. Our annual growth rate of exports to the United States has been 6.3% in those 14 years of data that we gathered. Between Canada and the U.S., this has doubled over the period of time since NAFTA came to existence. And between Canada and Mexico, that's quadrupled. So we've seen a significant growth with our exports to Mexico. And a percent of Canada's total merchandise exports destined to our NAFTA partners, well, that's 80% of all exports are destined to either Mexico or the United States. That's huge. And then when it comes to services, well, we've seen a significant increase as well. With Mexico, $42.9 billion in '93, and that's grown to $86 billion by 2005. United States from $42 billion in '93 to $91 billion in 2008. So NAFTA's had a significant impact on the trade of services, as mentioned, right? Our job creation, 4.3 million new jobs have been created between '93 and 2008. Again, a lot of those due to our trade in our NAFTA agreement. 1 in 5 jobs now relates to trade. And then inward foreign direct investment. So money flowing in from the United States and Mexico investing in Canada has grown to $240 billion. So that's provided a number of opportunities for countries coming in here, and has provided a lot of benefit to Canadian citizens as well. Alright, so what does it all mean? Well, I want you to think about this for a second. With all of these positive impacts, why do some people still oppose NAFTA? There are reasons to oppose it, and there's some considerations we have to take. So consider this question for a second. Make sure you finish your notes, you add your own discussion question, and that's it. That's all. That's everything. We'll see you tomorrow.